you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here after several failed attempts at recording this podcast. Hope everyone's keeping well there.
Hi everybody, Matt Guy here. The universe and the powers that be can't keep us down. In Snowden we trust.
Indeed. In Snowden we trust. I mean, the fact that a gunpowder plot celebration has thwarted us. The fact that a religious ceremony has thwarted us. The man has thwarted us, but we are here for now. And until the power cuts happen, and the air raid sirens start, we're here. Hello, everyone.
Oh, that reminds me, Matt, how's the laptop? Is it now working? And
yeah, I don't know what's hotter, the laptop or the tumble dryer that's been on that I'm currently recording. So if you see plumes of smoke, it's probably one of those two items.
Incredible. Quick question before we get into the actual episode, and I realise this may be very specific towards Matt rather than Stu because it's a coffee question. When you have a coffee, if you have an instant rather than a latte or something, do you preheat your mug?
I wouldn't say I do it as a bone of contention, but I generally wash my mug anyway, just because it's got the scum from the day before in it, because like the drop. So I wouldn't say I technically preheat it, but if I was to be in a Wetherspoons or another establishment where I'm having a coffee that I've got to go make myself with a mug, I'll run it with seawater first so it's hot.
Yeah, because I've recently started doing it and I do feel like it's a game changer. The coffee blooms a little better and it does last a bit longer as well.
If I'm having filthy casual instant coffee as well, I'll put milk in first, make it into a paste of the colour that I like, and then pour more water.
Yeah, same here. Stu's just looking completely dumbfounded at this one.
He's talking about making coffee bovril there. I mean, there's no need for this.
It's because you don't burn you're not putting boiling hot water straight onto the coffee, then you're kind of giving it an opportunity to not be burnt.
No, I'm not that much of a heat that I do know that part. But it was me who told you about the tea water trick. So I'm getting my credit where it's due, because that's what I do as well. Mainly because I know how thoroughly uncleaned the teacups are in Wetherspoons sometimes in different establishments, depending on where you are. But especially if you got the disposable paper cups that I normally have when I leave, it just makes more sense because you rinse them out and they're okay. But there's something like the cardboardy taste about them sometimes, so it just makes more sense.
This is not quite the same, but don't know why it's popped into my head. The older I get, the more I'm pushing the ideology of having a shower before I go to bed as opposed to a shower in the morning. Because I feel like when you have a shower before you go to bed, you wash off the filth from the day and you go into bed clean. So then you're gonna have cleaner sheets than if you was to go to bed with the filth of the day on you and then shower in the morning once you're out of bed.
I very much like a shower at the end of the day before getting into a nice clean bed.
But I'm an enigma because I normally finish by midday, so I have one then. So it's neither or.
That makes sense, I suppose.
But it is the same thing that you still wake up sweating. So regardless of which way you do it, when I actually do this is on match days normally. But that is because I've got like an underlayer on and then the shirt, and then you got your dynamite and chips that you devour afterwards after the 7 pints of Guinness. So it is one of them where you're sweating through different reasons, and you can't be going to bed like that. It's just stickiness. So I suppose it does make sense.
After the horrors that you've witnessed in your life, Stu, waking up in a cold sweat is the least of your problems, I guess.
Right, so this episode, it's a bit of a joint question cast come music cast because I've found a handful of conspiracies from the film and music world. And I wanted to get your opinions on these ones. I've tried to avoid Scientology because honestly that would open up a door in and of itself. So it's pretty much everything but Tom Cruise being a bit of a wrong 'un. So I think we'll start off with one which is quite a famous one, that 1997's Good Will Hunting. So obviously Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, that was the film that brought them into the mainstream. Not only that, it gave them their first Academy Award appearances. But the rumours are that Ben and Matt didn't actually write that movie. The man who wrote the movie was the Princess Bride scribe, William Goldman. Goldman has confirmed that he read the script prior to the film being made and that he did advise them not to make it into a thriller, as was their original plan. But there were several others who also did this. Like I know Kevin Smith had done it because obviously he's good friends with Ben Affleck going way back. So that's the conspiracy, is that actually their Oscar win should never have been because they didn't actually write the film. Stu, what do you think? Is this like a conspiracy that we should be believing, or is it one that should be completely ignored, do you think?
I mean, out of all of them, it sounds plausible that you do get these kind of whack jobs that come out of nowhere claiming that they've done something. But if he actually was a writer, is he credible enough to say that, yeah, he could have done it and they've adapted it themselves? I wouldn't rule this one out.
I think it's because obviously they had not, they were very young. I think they were mid-20s and they sort of like burst onto the scene with it. And yeah, so people don't know them as screenwriters. So they've got this Oscar buzz and people don't want to believe that two young, handsome books can come in and steal all the limelight.
I think the fact that they've done similar since as well kind of makes it even less feasible in a way, because they have got proven body of work now. But at the time, you can understand why.
Matt, where do you sit on this one?
Well, he came out, didn't he, and say, I had nothing in writing, which it gives me instant red flags that a script writer wouldn't have had any ideas, even dating, you know what I mean? He's absolutely nothing other than an idea in his head that somehow is turned into this film. It smells odd to me. I'm not buying it, if I'm honest with you. I think it's easy to get a bit of a buzz against your own name and a bit of publicity against your own name with a claim like this, where you've got no proof that it was you that did it, but you've also got no proof that the others did it either. So it's kind of win-win in a way. You get notoriety regardless.
Yeah, good point. Right, so the next conspiracy that I found, it's still in the Oscar realm. Marissa Tomei. So there's a theory that her best Supporting Actress win in 1993 for her role in My Cousin Vinny. The only reason she won is because award presenter Jack Palance was so drunk or stoned he could not read the teleprompter or card properly. So he just read out the last name again, which was Marissa Tomei's. The Academy have since denied it, and Tomei, who was initially very annoyed about the rumour, understandably so as well, because it kind of diminishes her role in that film. She has eventually gone on to like crack jokes about it on Saturday Night Live, but like Palance is dead, so like obviously he can't ever tell us whether or not it's true. Matt, My Cousin Vinny, comedies don't get a lot of love at the Oscar Awards, so I can see why this has got a feet, so to speak. But we've also had the Moonlight La La Land controversy where they did correct it. So would that not just have happened here, do you think?
I can believe this happened. I genuinely can, especially for like the time of year when the time that the film came out in the first place. I think like we lived in a very different world then where, you know, I don't think that this was still televised and that, but I don't think it would be anywhere near to the level that they are like scrutinised today. I can genuinely believe this happened. They were like kind of brushed under the carpet in the same way. I mean, if we want to talk a real conspiracy, let's talk about when Sam Ryder was screwed out of Eurovision. There we go. But yeah, I can genuinely believe this one happened. To be fair, I think it's on the more plausible scale.
Stu, what do you think to this one?
I think he's got a point because of the era that it was. Because you ain't got cameras, you haven't got access to it, the cards. Because that'd be the thing, wouldn't it? That someone would say, "Oh, okay, you've got the names clearly written down somewhere. You know who they are, and as soon as this comes up, then it'd be investigated now straight away." Like you said, that when it happened a few years ago. But yeah, I'd like to think that it's not, because I like her. She seems quite a nice person.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the other names who were up for that award, Judy Davis for Husbands and Wives, Joan Plowright for Enchanted April, Vanessa Redgrave, Howard's End, and Miranda Richardson, Damage. I mean, there's some big names in there, don't get me wrong, but none of those films have really lasted the test of time, whereas My Cousin Vinny does still get spoke of even now, 30 years later. So,
yeah, I've got no idea what them films are.
No, I've never heard of any of them.
Or them people, either. Obviously, other than Redgrave, but God knows. So, looking at the opposition list, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that, yeah, he's just been so pissed that he's thought that he's read the wrong name out, when actually he's got it right.
Could be. The next conspiracy hits a little bit closer to home. In 2012, a photograph was found of a man from 1870s who bore a striking resemblance to Nicolas Cage. This then gave rise to the rumour that Cage is a vampire. The man who found the picture put it on eBay asking for $1 million, saying, "Personally, I believe it is him, and that he's some sort of walking undead / vampire, etc., who reinvents himself once every 75 years or so. 150 years from now, he might be a politician, the leader of a cult, or a talk show host." David Letterman did ask Cage about this story. Cage laughed it off and said the man in the picture wasn't good looking enough to be it. I mean, I think we all want it to be true. Nicolas Cage is a vampire and has got some kind of holdover since the podcast, but I'm not buying this one personally. Stu, are there vampires out there firstly? And is Nick Cage one of them?
He might not be a vampire, but it doesn't mean he's not immortal. And you do get these weird ones, like that time traveller with a phone in Victorian era. Like, what are there's weird stuff that makes no sense. For Nicolas Cage, of all people, to have been one of these, I could barely believe it, because I do. Because it answers so many questions, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
So, if not fully, I'm choosing to believe this one.
Okay. So this is more of a case that Renfield wasn't a motion picture and more of a documentary then.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think to this one?
Sadly, I don't think this is true. However, I am in the camp of until science proves it otherwise. Because, years and years and years ago, we didn't know that certain things existed until they were proved by science, and now they've become a staple. So, I don't believe that like ghosts exist in the sense of someone walk around in chains going, "Ooh," but I also, what I believe is just something that we haven't proved yet as a science, like an echo in time or something like that. That with technology in the future, we'll be able to actually decipher what these things are. And who's to say that there isn't species of things out there that we don't know exist? I'm not saying Nick Cage as a vampire is one of them. However, when we've only we haven't discovered nearly any of the ocean and stuff like that, there's bound to be things out there that we can't explain, and Nick Cage could be one of them.
So you're agnostic to this one then? It's until it's proven otherwise, it's a possibility.
Yeah, I don't particularly believe it, but I'm not ruling it out.
Are you saying that he's come from the Mariana Trench instead?
There's a strong possibility. Yep.
Brilliant. So Cage isn't the only one who has this type of rumour about him. Keanu Reeves as well apparently is an immortal. You can go to a website called KeanuIsImmortal.com and you will see an article showing Keanu Reeves paintings and pictures. The first one is from between 748 to 814 because apparently Keanu Reeves is the Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne. Then there's a massive gap of about 1,700 years when we come back in 1847 to a guy called Paul Mounet, who was a medical doctor turned actor in Paris. And then again, we've got another gap of over 100 years where we look to the late 1900s, early 2000s, where we just see Keanu Reeves as he is now. And he doesn't appear to have aged whatsoever. Look, I think we can say that he's a very affable, likeable person, and I understand why people want to see a little bit more in him than just being a normal dude. But this one seems baffling that the evidence they have is that he's not an arsehole, and that can only be that that kindness can only be gained from having a long and successful life. Just seems a bit bizarre to me, this one does.
Master, well, I'm looking at the website. Here is the proof, and they look nothing like him. They literally don't look anything like. Yeah. He doesn't even look like the 1991 picture now. So it's like, I don't know how they've got this one at all. This is a really strange. This is like the middle one, the Paul Monet one. That's in pink on the website. Looks more like the Paul Rudd. Let it just get up. So yeah, this is a non-starter. Unfortunately, we throw this one in.
Yeah, something to miss. Stu?
Yeah, but I mean, I was just looking at how, because he's very unique looking here, and when you look at what his genetic makeup is, and he's American dad from Hawaii, and he himself is native Hawaiian, Chinese, English, Irish, and Portuguese descent. His paternal grandmother is Chinese Hawaiian. So, and he was born in Beirut. So for all this mixture to happen over and over again, you don't get people who look like Keanu Reeves. And I've seen this one before. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. No, not this one. Not like Keanu.
No. I think that's 3 for 3. I'm not buying that bullshit either. Moving on to the next one. James Dean died when he was only 24 in 1955, sadly cutting his short career even shorter. Or did he? Because some people have you believe that Dean hated Hollywood so much that he struck a deal with the studios whom he worked for to fake his death, upon which he moved to Canada to live in relative obscurity. He lived a long life that was ironically ended at the age of 95 in a car crash in Alberta. The theory was given some weight by an American doctor who determined that Dean could have survived that 1955 car crash, as he was still alive when the emergency services arrived at the scene, but also that a 95-year-old man did die in a car accident in Alberta in 2018. The small issue would be that in 2018, if Dean was still alive, he wouldn't have been 95 years old. He wouldn't be 95 for another 3 years. So actually, the maths doesn't quite work up, but that's the rumour anyway. We've heard of actors not liking the spotlight and wanting out of it, but would a studio go as far as helping their guy escape the limelight? I think the studio, if anything, would want to keep him around.
Yeah. Especially this Hollywood at the time as well, where it was, well, fuck the talent, your ass.
Mm.
They wouldn't be bending over backwards to fake his death. It's madness. Well, no, he was a big star and whatever, but still. What would be in it for them? They ain't going to make any more money if he's not there, are they?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense.
But there's a rumour we'll come to later, which seems to be of a studio doing the exact opposite of this. So, like, the studio involvement is what makes me immediately think this is bullshit, because I don't see why they would want to get rid of someone who's at the start of their career, who they could have made millions off the back of. Matt, are you buying this one at all?
Yeah, I think for the same reasons as Stu. Like, and I'm basing this purely off The Godfather. And when they kind of pimped out all of the movie stars, when the studios did, but yeah, there would be nothing to be gained by the carny circus that is Hollywood, especially at that time, letting him do it. I mean, in regards to like dismissing the 95-year-old that should have been 92, you probably would give a fake age when you went to the new place as a part of your new identity. You probably are older or younger. So unless they did it by like gene, DNA to decide his age, then I don't think the age thing, I think, could or couldn't be. But there's no way the studio would have like paid for him to go, to go off into the distance. There's nothing to gain from it for them.
The next conspiracy, this one's a twofer. So 20% of Americans still believe that the moon landing was faked. And some of those believe that NASA had hired Stanley Kubrick to film the moon landing in a studio in Hollywood after seeing his work on 2001, A Space Odyssey. Their evidence is that the flag should have been flaccid. They should have had one source of light, but there were multiple shadows, indicating that it was on a studio lot with all different lights everywhere. There's no crater from the blast-off site from when the shuttle landed and took off. Also, there's no stars, and if Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon, who was filming him going down the ladder? I mean, all of those things are quite easily disprovable through basic science. But firstly, did we go to the moon? And if not, did Stanley Kubrick film this one, Matt?
The thing is, I can believe that this would have been faked because of what was going on in the Cold War at the time and stuff like that. I can believe that this was a fake. However, I'm not, like most conspiracies, is there really that much to be gained from it? You got to think of like what would have been gained, and just, I don't know, we're not living in the Cold War era, obviously, and this wasn't an arms race thing as far as I'm aware. Like, yeah, it was a race to who can do what, but I don't know. Is the superiority of a nation's space program really worth this whole conspiracy? I'm not sure.
It's not like, obviously, what we watched in the summer with Oppenheimer building the hydrogen bomb. You understand that as a race. You are right. Like, who benefits from going to the moon? Like, who benefits from a flat Earth? It doesn't quite make sense, does it?
But at the same time, like, with the huge rising superpowers that we have, like India and China and these massive global economies, why haven't any of them gone? Like, to be like, listen, we can do it like 2 times quicker than when it was done before. We're going to rock up there and put our flag on the moon. Like, why has nobody done it since? Which does surprise me a little.
There's nothing there, is there? There are pubs. So there's a point. Yeah. I know. There's no. I think that is the reason that there's nothing there.
Weather moon.
Like, yeah. Weatherspoons are the first one on the moon, wouldn't he? Definitely. Literal moon underwater. But there's nothing there, is there? There's nothing to gain from going there. There's no minerals or anything to mine. So, as always, there's no capital gain. There's no point. So
we've been back. I wasn't involved in this. The human race has revisited the moon, but I think it was just the Americans as part of the Apollo moon landings up until 1972 was the last time we were there. So they have been back and visited a few times, apparently, allegedly. But yeah, I don't understand why it would benefit. Like you said, Matt, I don't understand why they would fake it. It just seems a bit pointless to have done it, to be perfectly honest.
Do you think that in the public domain we'll have proof of alien life in our lifetimes?
I'd like to think so, but I do believe there are aliens. Just on the sheer mathematics alone, it's highly improbable that there isn't another being somewhere out there. I just don't think they've ever visited Earth. Because how would they build a spacecraft, come all this way, and that spacecraft crashes? That just seems a little bit odd. So I don't think we'll ever see it in our lifetime, at least, just because I don't think we've ever been visited. But I do think it's highly likely that there is something else out there.
Look at that thing, the Mexico aliens from a few months ago, and everyone just took the piss out of them. Did you see how small they were?
Yeah.
They're like the little guys in Men in Black with a coffee. Like if that's the best you can come up with, and everyone was just against something like that looks okay. That's different to what we normally see, but people just photoshopped it into different things. Like, oh well, there we are. That's an alien, then that's fine. Like, no one takes anything seriously anyway, so I don't think anyone would really care.
True.
This is it. Like, I think if something did happen, I think it would be old news really quickly. Legitimately would. It would be like, oh, they found a 40-legged bird or something on a planet, and we're gonna snap a picture of it. And I think, okay, Bake Off's on though in half an hour, so yeah, that's it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's people would care enough, maybe, which is ridiculous, but probably true.
Yeah, the news cycle has just got faster and faster, hasn't it, as we've grown up with it, I think. And you are right, within a day, memes would be everywhere and no one would be taking anything seriously. The next conspiracy is in regards to Bruce Lee. So he died having seizures and headaches resulting in a cerebral edema. This was to combat the swelling of his brain. Lee was taking painkillers. Allegedly, Lee had an allergic reaction to this. However, some will have you believe that he was killed by the Chinese triads. Now, I thought the triads were Japanese for a start, so I'm not quite sure of the validity of this. 2 weeks before his death, Lee was threatened by Lo Wei, who allegedly had mob connections. And also there's a rumour that the Lee family is cursed, and the evidence being Brandon Lee's death on set during the filming of The Crow. Stu, was this a mob hit to take Lee out? He brought kung fu and whatnot from the Far East to the West, and apparently that's a death sentence, some will have you believe.
You can fully believe this one. And you know how the cultural differences between them two places. If you're taking something and exploiting their culture for Western gain, back then as well, 20, 30 years after World War II, and you're thinking, well, you got the mob stuff, you've got the triads, or the Yakuza is Japanese. Triads is totally correct.
Right.
So, if he is a bit too big for his own yellow boots in their eyes, then you can completely accept that he was taken out. And do certain families have curses? If we can have curses against teams in blue and white stripes who beat us all the time, then of course. So, yeah, I do believe this one. This is got a possibility of being true.
Matt, one of the rumour about Bruce Lee was that his body was so finely tuned as an athlete that just the sheer presence of having an outside factor in an aspirin was enough to kill a man. Can a human body be that perfect that anything that isn't, natural, aspirin is natural, isn't it? It's derived from the bark of a tree, if I remember rightly. But is that possible, do you think? Or is that just looking for a legend?
Yeah, I think, I don't think there's a lot in that, because I think just by the proxy of being in, it's not like he's some kind of tribesman that hasn't encountered humankind, has got no antibodies in his body, like being got, I don't think there's anything in that at all. I think that the whole rumour of it, that is absolutely plausible. Is it on par with Jolene Lescott having to leave Wolverhampton because of the Johnsons? I don't know. But I think there's a good probability that this could be true, especially the Chinese, the whole communism versus the evil West in their eyes kind of stuff, and him being like a legacy traitor, maybe is the way that they would have saw it. So there's a chance this. I mean, the curse of the whole Brandon Lee thing, whilst it makes a good story, I think obviously, unless more people have died, it's not much of a curse if two of them have died in suspicious circumstances. More an unhappy coincidence.
Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously we've sadly seen like within the last couple of years, the accident involving Alec Baldwin on set. So we do know these things happen. And obviously, like Michael Massey lived his life feeling like he's the reason that Brandon Lee died, and he's obviously dealt with a lot of shit on it. And I feel like kind of invalidates his trauma of having to deal with that a little bit by saying it was just a curse. It doesn't sit right with me, that. But I agree with you both. I do feel like, as you say, that East meets West, there was the Cold War, as you say, way back when. I can see where the roots have taken place for this conspiracy. And it is entirely believable as well. You can see that with, the introduction of the art of Kung Fu and whatnot, that I bet that would have rubbed some people up the wrong way back then. So
you need to watch a good drama on kind of Russia, Cold War kind of stuff. It's got is it The Man Who Something Uncle, whatever it's called? Isn't that meant to be decent? There's a
Man from Uncle.
The Man from Uncle. Isn't that meant to be that kind of world?
Yeah. You can just watch Days of Future Past. It's the same thing. Same actor as well.
Yeah, X-Men.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want.
You don't want to watch that anyway.
No, not again. No, there's other things like that I know. Well, I say that, like The Crown isn't out again in 3 days' time, so that's my TV watching sort for the next few days anyway.
Yeah, but you are I feel like I don't know hardly anything about the Cold War, only the headlines, the Bay of Pigs, and all that crap. But I just feel like there's a lot of story to it that has sort of gone untold, or at least untold to our generation somewhat.
Well, because of Metal Gear Master Collection being released, that's the thing. That's probably the only bit of knowledge that I know. This should Metal Gear Solid.
So the next one is another celebrity death. This time it's Paul Walker. He was killed by the Illuminati. I mean, the Illuminati did appear quite a lot whenever you look for anything conspiracy related. So the night of Paul Walker's death, he was attending a charity relief gala for the victims of the Philippines hurricane, I think it was. Rumour has it that Walker uncovered a conspiracy either within the relief efforts or within the Clinton Foundation, something to do with crimes against children in Haiti, causing people within the charity to cut the brakes on his friend's car. Never mind that his friend was driving near 100 miles per hour through neighbourhood streets. I think the problem with this and most conspiracy theories is that they just kept twisting the story. If you don't believe this, we'll add another layer to it, and we'll just keep adding to it until you'll buy into it. And this just feels like bullshit, because it makes more sense that a man who is quite famed for liking to drive fast cars died in a fast car. It feels like it's a real sort of Occam's razor sort of outcome here. And people don't want that. So I don't know about this one. Stu, what do you think? The Illuminati, the Clintons, who did it?
I mean, the whole child sex trafficking stuff and all that nonsense, which has been, we all know it goes on, but like you said, they were pissing about high speed in the dark. So what's going to happen there? Regardless, I mean, you only have to look at what happened to poor Freddie Flintoff, look at the state of him.
Mm.
He'd done that job for years, and then one freak miscalculation and he gets his face all mashed up. So with everyone, so loads of things that happened on Top Gear over the years. If you're doing, and that's in a controlled environment, let alone driving Fast and Furious stunt cars, which I presume he wouldn't have done a lot of anyway.
Mm.
Being an adrenaline junkie, went too far. That's all it is.
I think so. Matt, are you in agreement?
Yeah, I don't think there's much in this one. So, isn't this the way that Randy Savage went in a similar circumstance? Did he have a heart attack and then crashed into a tree or something?
Yeah, he was driving. I think he was driving himself, and he had a heart attack on the freeway, and I think he veered off, which was much similar to a Knight. Was it Knight? Used to play for Pompey, goalkeeper.
I say Wayne Knight. That's not the same bloke at all.
No, I can't remember his first name. But I think that was how he went. So I think he went peacefully in his sleep, but the people around him didn't, unfortunately.
That was a rumour that went around for age, wasn't it? That Randy Savage had been mobbing Stephanie McMahon when she was dead young, and that's why Vince got rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to know the story on that, because everyone went back to WWE at some point. Even Hogan, who had pretty much pissed over his legacy there, even he went back. But Savage never returned. So he must have done something really bad. And then, fucking Vince's underage daughter is of the level that you think that could possibly be true.
But then Vince also was in on the whole Stephanie and Eric Bischoff kissing angle. And there was a rumours of an incest angle at one point, wasn't there, as well? So I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, it could just be that Vince was jealous that Savage got to go first. That could have been that easy. The other thing about Paul Walker as well, I've always noticed whenever I see the sticker on the back of someone's car when they've got the Paul Walker, I can't even remember what the quote is on there, but I immediately know they're going to drive like a cunt around the road. They're going to be fucking awful. And every single time, without fail. The next conspiracy is the dead Munchkin conspiracy. So in one scene of Wizard of Oz, when the gang are walking along the yellow brick road, there is a silhouette in the background of a Munchkin that appears to be hanging from the tree. People believe that one of the extras had killed themselves. To add fuel to this fire, when they remastered the film years later, they'd quite clearly edited this hanging Munchkin out of it, and there's now a different silhouette there. So did they do it because there was a dead Munchkin in the background, or did they do it because people kept saying there was a dead Munchkin in the background? Is there any weight to this conspiracy, Matt?
Oh, I remember hearing about this years and years and years ago, and I thought it was just like a macabre, running joke in the background or something, the same way that Disney has loads of this, these side glance things of or in The Grinch when they're clearly swingers or they're having a keys in the bowl moment. It's just one of those things that they could get away with, and it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. That's what I always thought it was with this. I didn't realise there was a rumour that someone actually killed themselves and they were still filming and it was actually there. I didn't realise that was a thing. I think it would be more likely just to be a kind of grim joke that isn't very funny.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense. Does the porn scene that apparently is in The Rescuers Down Under, is it, I think, Disney film? It feels like it's that kind of joke that only adults will get the reference.
Yeah.
It'll be such a flash in the pan sort of view that you'll never really see it unless you pause it. on high definition DVD 70 years later. So yeah, I'm in agreement. It feels silly. And I understand why they would have altered that image in the remastered version, because it's kind of a tasteless joke, and years later it's even worse now than it would have been then. So I understand why they would have made a change to the remastered edition of it as well. Stu?
I mean, looking at it, that's exactly what it does look like.
Yeah, it does.
But it doesn't make any sense in that scene why that would be there. Because there's no context for it, because that's a happy scene. When they're skipping along.
Someone here says it's a bird. A silhouette of a bird, but I'm not sure that's any more plausible, to be honest.
No, it could be something as simple as a scratch on the actual film itself. Just in that specific, because I presume it's a matte painting, the background, as a lot of it would have been then. So it could have easily been like someone dropped like a leaf or something on there. It could have been something as simple as that, and no one realised until later. But it does look very suspicious. But even with back then, you know, the Black Dahlia murders and all that stuff in the dark days of Hollywood, there was a documentary about all that stuff. I can't remember what it was called. It might have actually been called that. And there was we touched on in LA Noir. If you're talking about games and history, would something like that have happened then? Possibly. But I think this is one of them. Like, you know, there's like the car in the village and things like that, where there's planes and stuff in the background that get removed later on. And there's like one in Gladiator, I think, as well. There's something in that.
Braveheart, I think there's like they're pissing about in Braveheart or something. There's a car.
Yeah. Well, it was
it rings a bell.
That episode of Game of Thrones where they had a Starbucks cup in shot, and then when it went back onto HBO Max or whatever it was called, then it had already been removed because they'd noticed it then, because everyone had put it on Twitter. So the mistakes happen. So they just couldn't edit it out back then. Now they can. So I doubt it, but you can see why it grew and grew.
Speaking of the Black Dahlia, have you ever actually watched that film? Josh Hartnett, I think it is. It's a decent movie, that is.
Is Scarlett Johansson in it, or have I made that up?
Oh, I can't remember. I only really remember Josh Hartnett, but it would have been an early role for Scarlett the Black.
I think I'm thinking of somebody else.
Yes, Scarlett Johansson plays Kay Lake. And Hilary Swank is in it as well, which, like, it's been so long since I've seen it, I only really remember Josh Hartnett being in it. But I remember really enjoying it. I won't mind watching that again, to be fair. I do quite like that old Hollywood style, and I think it's quite interesting. Some decent podcasts. I think Hollywood and Crime, I think, is a podcast from that period, and talks about all the others, so like the murder that Christopher Walken was involved in, the Natalie Woods murder, stuff like that. Really, I say murder. We don't know if she was murdered. We just believe she may have been. Some really interesting podcasts out there about a lot of crime that went on back then that was less than reported on.
I'm listening to the last book on the left by the last podcast on the left, who like talk about American serial killers, and I didn't realise about Ed Gein, who was like the catalyst for like Psycho and stuff like that, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Man, the story is insane. Like, you get 15 hours free with Spotify Preview anyway now. Like the book itself is a bit of a hard listen, because it goes from like talking about the gruesome details of these like serial killers, but then it interjects with like two of the podcast hosts making wisecrack jokes on top of it. And some of them hit okay, but some of them like just really like they're just shoehorned in, and it's a bit like Impractical Jokers is the kind of like the vibe you get from them. But the actual content of the serial killer stuff is great, and the Ed Gein stuff, God, that story's like unbelievable. It's got the inspiration for some of it. So if that's your thing, serial killers, which it is for a lot of people, to be fair, well worth a listen.
It's a really good podcast there, the last podcast on the left. But actually, I'm not sure how it would work as an audiobook, because, with them interjecting and giving notes on it just seems a little bit bizarre for an audiobook.
Yeah, and at the end of like every chapter, they do like a skit. I'll just skip those bits, to be honest. It's not really my bag. But therefore, stories of the serial killers is good. I think what are we on now? John Wayne Gacy now. I'm on.
Nice.
Because obviously a few of them, a few of them appear in like Mindhunter, don't they? Like there's a Ted Bundy one. I think we've had Ted Bundy. We've got Dahmer as like the last chapter in the book and stuff like that.
Mm. I think if you're vaguely interested in giving the podcast a try, I'd say give the O.J. Simpson episodes a listen. They're really good, and the murder of Tupac and Biggie, or if you want something a bit more serial killery, the Toy Box Killer. I mean, that you need a fucking iron stomach to get through some of the shit that goes through, but it's a very interesting listen. They do try and make it a little bit lighter, but at the same time, like, you might like it, you might not. I think it could go either way with some people, but it is a series I do quite like, to be fair. So that's the movie side of things when it comes to the conspiracy theories. Moving on to the musical side now. So obviously the most famous one would probably be Kurt Cobain. He hated the fact that his little band, and by extension himself, had now become so famous that he couldn't live the life he wanted. He left a suicide note. It's better to burn out than fade away. In the days leading up to this suicide, he had been seen by shotgun shells. The police had taken guns off Cobain previously in the prior 10 months for his own safety. However, that is not enough for some. Reporter Richard Lee said there were discrepancies to the police report. There was too much blood on the scene. I would have thought there'd be a lot of blood if someone blew their face off, to be perfectly honest. One theory is that Cobain was murdered because there was too much heroin in his system. He wouldn't have been able to have actually pulled the trigger due to the amount of heroin that was in his blood. Is there more to this story than a man who had mental health issues and couldn't cope with the fame? Matt, you're our resident music dude, so I think you're the best person to start on this one.
There's the whole, and obviously, Courtney, if you're listening, there's the whole thing about it being Courtney Love and everything else as well. I think this is probably more cut and dry than most, really. I think, like, you know, Kurt Cobain hated the fame almost, and the irony being that, like, Smells Like Teen Spirit is like the ungrungiest song. It's more like a rock song in the same way that Blur hated the fact that it's song 2. I don't buy into the conspiracies on this one. I just think it's a very sad lead of events for like a really talented musician or part of a talented band. So yeah, I don't buy into this one. I mean, it makes a good story. It makes that whole, was it the 27 club or the 23 club or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Obviously, the more that rolls on, the more people want it to be true. And when people want it to be true, they'll then find anything they can. I mean, imagine if these artists were around now in the internet sleuth era. There'd be all sorts of crazy conspiracies about them. So no, I don't buy this one.
I mean, obviously, there's another theory that the Illuminati killed him, and apparently they killed him because there are lyrics in Utero that talk about the discoverance of the Illuminati and stuff like that. But no one, like everything I've read, no one's been able to point out to any of the lyrics that uncover the Illuminati. So you are right, it is people just trying to fit a narrative to make the 27 Club something that is just an unfortunate coincidence. Stu?
Yeah. With that whole thing about the heroin, if you're an addict, you're going to be able to take more than most people anyway. So that's a lot of bollocks. So if he'd gone over his normal amount, he'd still be able to pull the trigger. But I remember at the time saying, oh yeah, he pulled the trigger with his toes and all this stuff. And yeah, well, if you're going to blow your face off, you're going to do it. It's just a simple fact. And if anything, if he did have that much heroin in his system, that's probably why there wasn't as much blood as there normally would be. Again, blood thinners and all that stuff. So having the opposite effects and all that kind of thing. Yeah. Just sad.
Yeah.
Tortured genius, blew his head off. Simple.
Yeah, I do feel like it's a very straightforward story, doesn't it? I realised that I saw the other day that his daughter now is engaged to, is it Tony Hawk's son?
No.
That feels like quite the coming together of two very famous families from a certain period of time, doesn't it?
It does. It's funny that how Tony Hawk's legacy of those games, music wise, is still it's very apparent in the world. Like that band, the 900, who I saw it download, that only do Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 covers. Like they just go from strength to strength. Right there, people really do clamour to that time period in very much a golden age of gaming and music and film and TV. That people still really want to get a piece of today.
Yeah. The next conspiracy is in regards to Whitney Houston. So her mum believes that she was killed because she had drugs in her system. But Whitney's quite a well-known user of drugs, or was at least, so that doesn't feel like very good evidence to me. But one rumour about the killing, so to speak, is that the Illuminati had killed her to ensure the survival of Blue Ivy Carter, Jay-Z and Beyonce's daughter. I don't quite understand how Whitney being alive would have killed the baby. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The baby was born a couple of days before Whitney had died. But obviously Beyonce is a leader of the Illuminati. If you look in certain corners of the internet, she's a very high-ranked member of the Illuminati, they'll have you believe. It just seems bizarre. And obviously the Illuminati have also killed Michael Jackson, who they wanted dead for his music catalogue, John Lennon, who they wanted dead for speaking out about the US government, and Jimi Hendrix because he had ties to Black Panthers. The thing I have an issue with the Illuminati is they often talk about it being outside of the government and controlling government, but they also talk about it being the government, which is why I don't think the Illuminati is a thing, because it seems to be everything to all people. It's just an easy answer to a question nobody's asked.
Yeah, I mean, we saw from Snowden and the other one that the secret government thing is real, and that would be the Illuminati if you go in that deep. So it does exist, but just because something exists doesn't mean you can blame everything on it. It's just,
I think it's secret
odd.
within the government as opposed to someone above the government pulling the strings across the whole world sort of thing. I think that's what, when you read it, that seems to be what it is that it controls everything and everyone. And that doesn't quite make sense when it mostly seems to be Americans who were affected by it.
Well, like Klaus from the World Economic Forum.
It seems like it, doesn't it?
He's there's a picture of him dressed up like the Hood from Thunderbirds, and that's not. I thought, well, that's clearly just made up, and it's apparently not made up. He was wearing that for some mad reason. But he's got like ties to Nazis and stuff, and the Rothschilds and all that kind of thing. So if you go deep enough, you can find anything.
I mean, I think when it comes to the Illuminati, it just feels like it's the modern day version of the Jews are wrong with everything in the world. It feels like it's just a very old trope given a new face. For me personally, it kind of stinks. Matt, getting back to the specifics of the music, why did they kill Whitney to save Blue Ivy? I don't get it. Is there anything there?
No, I'm not sure there's anything there. The original conspiracy was she was killed because she had drugs in her sister, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's
what Mark thinks.
Well, that's exactly what did happen. So it's not a conspiracy, but just not quite in the nefarious way that her mum believes it to be true. Yeah, it's a very, very, very sad story that was going on. I'm not sure about the whole lot, but people want salacious drama, don't they? And I don't think this is one of those. About the Illuminati, though, it's one of those things where I think people would, if the Illuminati really exists, they would want people to believe that they existed in the same way, and then they exist within the shadows amongst us, the same way that the greatest trick the devil ever told was like people believe he existed, or whatever the fucking phrase is. Again, it goes back to Metal Gear. I'm all in on Metal Gear 2. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on this podcast. I'm sure I did. I remember when I was young, I was playing Metal Gear, and when the Colonel goes mad and he starts like telling you to turn the game off, I shit myself and turn the game off because I thought the game had like hacks itself. That just AI was real. I remember it. And I was watching that person on Twitch the other day playing it. And there's loads of nods to it being a game, and like the whole Psycho Mantis thing was just like revolutionary. Like I believe how good it was, and I can't wait to play it again. I'm really looking forward to it.
I don't know how they're going to do that now.
Yeah, I was going to say, how will they do that? Because if you turn on the controller, unless you've got both of them on at the same time.
But how do they do the Psycho Mantis thing on the remix?
Yeah.
They've like just basically they just emulate a second port on the game.
Oh,
like you can just do it like, I think because everybody knows it exists, they've just done a way of doing it. This isn't like a remake. I think they've literally just like the buttons don't even match like what the Xbox would, or the buttons on the Xbox would still say like press circle. Circle.
Brilliant. The next one, Avril Lavigne. Apparently she died in 2003 and was replaced by an actress called Melissa Vandella. The reason people believe this one is very similar to James Dean. So basically, she was tired of very similar to James Dean in that the studio tried to cover up in this case. So she died when she was 19, I think it was. I think she was 19 when she died, and the studio tried to cover it up. So as I mentioned before, the studio helping him get out of it, these did the exact opposite, and they tried to keep Avril Lavigne going as a thing. So yeah, the reasons that they believe that she's still alive is because the reasons that they believe that she died and was replaced is between the time of 2003 and now, she looks different. So between the time when she was 19 and now 39, she doesn't look the same as she did when she was 16. That's their reasoning. There's also other stuff, like alongside there was a photo shoot where she had the name Melissa written on her hand. There's also evidence in Lavigne's second album, Under My Skin, which contained subliminal messages which confirmed this, and one song which said, "It wasn't fake, it happened, you passed by, now you are gone, there you go, somewhere I can't bring you back." So yeah, that's their reasoning that she was replaced. Other reasons, Melissa doesn't dress like a skater girl anymore. Her voice and handwriting has changed over the years. Some freckles have changed, and her teenage acne is no longer there, potentially because she's nearly 40 years old. Matt, Avril Lavigne, is it Melissa or what? I'm really confused with this song.
I don't think this one has any validity at all. But they look exactly the same. And she's just people age and look different when they age. Like, this is just a really strange one that I don't believe to be true. Has Avril Lavigne probably leaned into it for a bit more notoriety? Absolutely. Because why wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Actually, subtle nods that stoke the fire going, I'm sure gets the Spotify plays are rising. So yeah, I think this is one that has been happily leaned into by all parties involved.
Yeah. Stu?
I mean, you can understand it with Paul McCartney. that makes some kind of sense because he literally sounds different in different interviews back then. So you've got some basis. I mean, but this isn't complicated, is it? Well, there you are. Wasn't even deliberate. She's the same. She looks the same. I remember when that video with Tony Hawk came out. Was it last year or the year before? Doing Skater Boy again, and she looked exactly the same. So no.
I feel like had she have died, the studio, like whoever was producing her albums, would have sold more albums, not fewer albums. So it feels like letting her die, if she'd have died, would probably have been the more sensible route to take than replacing her with a look/sound alike. So it just doesn't make sense on any level, this one doesn't to me. Another sort of famous music one, the murder of Jean-Benet Ramsey has dozens, if not hundreds, of conspiracies about them. From a local schizophrenic, her brother, her mother, the Illuminati, again, of course, all killing her. But one theory is that she isn't dead. She, in fact, grew up to be Katy Perry. In 2016, a YouTuber outed Catherine Elizabeth Hudson as being JonBenet Ramsey. Their evidence is that they look alike, and that John and Patsy Ramsey, also look like Keith Hudson and Mary Perry. Never mind that Patsy Ramsey died of cancer in 2006. I mean, is it just like they don't actually look that much alike? So I don't really understand where this came from. I mean, I know obviously a kid can grow up to look like something completely different, but it doesn't feel like that 6-year-old would grow up to be Katy Perry. Effectively, she could have grown up to be anybody, but it feels like a reach, this one does, because again, it's an unsolved murder. They want something to happen, and this kind of fits some kind of story, I guess. Stu?
Yeah, it's just, you know, is it in RoboCop 2 where it is RoboCop 2 where they go to the warehouse and they've got Elvis's bones in the box, in a lock of his hair, because he didn't actually die back then and he died in the future. That's more believable than this one, because it's like the Keanu Reeves one where someone who looks kind of a little bit like him in the dark, maybe. But it's not even like everyone has a doppelganger and whatever. And there was a few, there's a few on my Facebook of people who looked like me at the time. Who, people used to tag me in them, and that was back then. Everyone looks like other people all the time. But they're just say, oh yeah, Katy Perry's famous now. That's obviously who this person is. No, nonsense.
I don't quite understand what, like, obviously if JonBenet didn't die, I don't understand what the point of faking her as the death of a 6-year-old would have been. Like, it doesn't make any sense then, and it makes it less sense now. So I don't get it. Matt, can you cast any light on this one?
No, it's another load of bollocks, this kind of stuff. I think nearly 99% of them will be absolute poppycock. I assume the Taylor Swift one's on your list as well.
Yeah, next up.
So yeah, I mean, might as well crack on with that one, because I think this has got to be one of the more bizarre ones that I don't know how in a million years could be true.
Yeah, so as I said, the last one is in regards to Taylor Swift. I don't know which one you in particular were referring to, Matt, because there are a few about Taylor Swift, unsurprisingly. So when Kanye interrupted Taylor Swift, it was really her initiation into the Illuminati. A YouTuber described it as a psychological operation targeted against kids to precondition them to start believing in fabricated events. And if you don't like that one, there is a photo of Taylor Swift and Zena LaVey circulated, and there's like a vague resemblance. So some are saying that Taylor Swift is actually a clone of Zena LaVey. Obviously, she's the daughter of Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. The amusing thing about the Illuminati nonsense, though, is that they're all inclined to believe such nonsense. That Kanye West was like a top dog in the Illuminati, but then he comes out sharing stories about who he believes is in the Illuminati. So everyone who knew that Kanye was in the Illuminati originally, he's now trying to uncover the Illuminati. Like, pick a fucking lane here, will you? So is he one of them, or is he not? Is he a truth seeker, or is he actually the devil in disguise? Again, it's this thing of we'll just keep adding shit until it fits some kind of nonsense narrative. Matt, was he one of those ones that you'd heard about Taylor, or is there more out there?
She was the clone of some satanic cult leader.
Yeah,
they don't look anywhere near alike. They don't even have the same nose for one, so it's not a very good clone if there is. I suppose the technology though back then for when the satanic leader was alive wouldn't be flawless, but they don't even have like the same nose at all. I've given this more thought than the conspiracy theory deserves.
I think they've got the same hair. That's pretty much as much as it goes to. They were both blondes, but that's pretty much it. But yeah, so Taylor Swift is deeply embedded in the Illuminati and forcing the children of the world to believe in fabricated events. Some will have you believe. Stu, was the Kanye thing real, or was it just planting a seed in children's minds?
I mean, Kanye's a bit of an odd character anyway.
Yeah.
To begin with. Well, how far away from him going crazy can we get all the lights back again? Because that worked at Molyneux for night games. It was great. But he had to go and ruin it, didn't he? There's something very odd about Taylor Swift, though. She's not. I don't think she's human. We'll put that out there. So if she is a clone, or if she's just some kind of satanic being, there's someone the other day talking about it, saying she's at Madonna levels now, and you can kind of believe that. Obviously, we were around in the 80s, but we weren't cognizant of it.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely insane, and the whole NFL thing and the Kelsey stuff. Even for games that she's not there, and there's no interest in, they're talking about fucking Taylor Swift every week, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's like she's got a little evil claw into everyone and twisting the knife. So if anyone's capable of some kind of satanic powers, look what happens to Swifties when you say anything about her. They're brainwashed already, so she's already fulfilled the prophecy. So yes, this one is 100% real.
I mean, look, I do like Taylor Swift. I think she's very good at what she does. But Swifties are 100% a cult. Like, it is insane the level that they're going to. As you've said, like, them obsessing over NFL football. I couldn't imagine giving a flying fuck about who someone is dating. Like, a musician that I like, I couldn't give a shit who they're dating, let alone to the extent that I now want to deep dive into a sport that I've no interest in. It's just, they are absolutely mind-blowing. But we had seen it before with One Direction. I remember One Direction giving, is it Gabriel Bon Lahore abuse because he tackled one of the One Direction lot?
Yeah.
Parity game. Like, we've seen this level of job before, and it's just following suit. And I think the internet has given rise to more and more of it. It's just bonkers, isn't it, this whole thing?
You know, after called out Swifties last week or the week before, I had suggested adverts on Twitter with Swiftie jumpers and Swiftie sweatshirts.
Well, that's the Illuminati listening.
Exactly. They're always listening. They're always all seeing eye everywhere. I mean, I've got about 4 Taylor Swift albums anyway, so more of the country stuff because that was better, but still, Antichrist, definitely.
Matt, is Taylor Swift the devil?
I don't know about the devil. Well, she's very lovely. There's a very ethereal quality about her, something I can't quite put my finger on. And
I think what she wants you to think.
There is something about it. There is something there, though. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something not quite right there. But I'm all for it all the same.
I did see recently on Twitter the meeting of the two worst groups of people in the world, wrestling fans and Swifties, arguing over who was a bigger draw. Was it Taylor Swift and Kelsey, or is it Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch? Who's the more famous couple?
Oh dear.
And like, I cringed so hard reading this nonsense because like, they do seem to be the worst factions on Twitter, tend to be wrestling fans and Swifties. So that was interesting read. Right, so that is all of the conspiracies looked at. Not all of them ever, because there were shit tons. There's so much out there, so we can always revisit it later down the line. If you've got any conspiracies, so get in contact with us on the socials at CageFightingPod or emails to cagefightingpod@gmail.com. Next up, we will be doing a movie, and we've threatened to do this one for so long, and it is finally time. And I cannot fucking wait to hear Matt's opinions on the classic that is The Room, the Tommy Wiseau film from 2000 and something. It's outstanding work, and I can't wait to actually finally discuss this movie with Matt. He doesn't know what he's in for here, and it's so exciting.
I know enough of the room that I'm already like. Well, I know enough of it that I'm looking forward to doing it, but at the same time, like, will we end up watching The Disaster Artist as part of this, like as a part 2, or is it The Disaster Artist?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
But yeah, it's or maybe I'll watch it after I've watched The Room, as like the same way I watched that Snowden one that after we watched Snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be a good one. I have just before we go, I have a conspiracy theory going on at work right now.
Go on.
Do you want to hear it?
Go on.
Every time I like, there are always toilets that are full of toilet paper. Right. There's not necessarily like been defecated or anything like that. There's just full of toilet paper all the time. And I've come to the conclusion that the cleaners are filling it with toilet paper, so people will only use 1 or 2 actual toilets, keeping them clean underneath, so have to not limit the amount of work that they do. And no one will believe me. And I need to catch them in the act of doing it.
That's outstanding. I mean, that's kind of genius. I would do that just so I could shit in that particular toilet that no one else would.
Exactly. This is the perfect crime because they like don't have to clean as many toilets because some people think that the other ones aren't in use, whereas actually they're absolutely fine. They've just been jammed full of bog roll.
You know, I saw for the first time in ages last week, in one of the cubicles, that someone had put, like in an old 1980s airport, they'd put tissue on the seat. And I hadn't seen that for years anywhere. I don't know, but people do that anyway, but they normally flush it away afterwards. That it had been left there on the seat.
That's disgusting.
I can't remember where I first saw that now.
Did you mention pissing or something on the Killer Link? I saw a tweet. I just couldn't work out what it was that I'd seen, Stu.
No, it was because there was 2 stories where certain bodily fluids have been mentioned in a couple of weeks, and she got obsessed with it. But then it happened again, and now it's happened again, without any warning whatsoever, and nothing to do with me. So,
You did.
I haven't listened to the episode yet of The Killing Link. I've got it lined up in my podcatcher for the flight, which was out last week when this podcast goes out. So make sure you've caught up on that one as well. Right, so please make sure you subscribe on whatever podcatcher that you're listening to us on now, and a review would be phenomenal. Thank you very much for joining us this week. We truly do appreciate your time. For this week, Matthew, would you like to say goodbye?
Thank you, everybody. Look after yourselves. If we've died under mysterious circumstances before this is released, then someone delete my hard drive.
Stuart, would you like to say goodbye?
I want to believe. Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me, and remember, the truth is out there.